Hey everybody, this is Dream, and before I get started in the video, I would just like to ask you guys to like and comment and subscribe. That'd be really helpful and pretty awesome if you. Thank you guys who are already liking, commenting, and subscribing on videos. Make sure to check in the link below for the Discord and Patreon, and if you have any comments or questions about the videos, feel free to leave them below. So this is going to be the DraftKings main slate that starts at 7 p.m. And yes, there is a game here that says Detroit and Kansas City that says 4 p.m. This game is not going to count. You're going to see that the players are in red. DraftKings has stated that the Detroit and Kansas City game has been postponed, when actually it's been moved up because of weather. And these players will not accrue points in this particular set. And on the game itself, this actually starts at 7 p.m. So you don't have to worry about this Detroit-Kansas City game. So that's off the table. So there's really 8 games instead of the 9 that there was originally. But this is a really good slate. We've got big home run hitting teams playing, with Milwaukee playing Cincinnati. I expect some stuff there. I expect some Toronto-Texas game to be interesting. And of course, we have the Coors Field game between Colorado and Arizona, which, if you've seen it yesterday rather, it was a big game. And then also Atlanta and Seattle, and LA Dodgers versus San Diego. So we got lots of big games on the slate, so we got lots of potential for home runs. Alright, so let's get into the stacks that I have in this particular game. We have Arizona, Colorado, Toronto, and the Milwaukee Brewers. I think all 4 of these teams have really good upsides in these particular games, and you're definitely going to want to take advantage of that. You still have some bats from Cincinnati, Atlanta, St. Louis, and Cleveland that are definitely going to be interesting. So let's go ahead and get into pitchers. So we have a pretty good solid slate of pitchers. I have 5 guys that I've targeted I think are useful options here. So let me get into those. So we have, first of all, we have Max Fried for Atlanta. Let me get to my pitchers here. Sorry about that. He's going up against Seattle, who's not they have some guys that can hit, but he's been really good this season. Now, his upside is a little bit capped because he doesn't get as many strikeouts as some of the other guys on this roster. But he's been pitching pretty well as of late. He actually pitches better on the road than at home, surprisingly. But overall, he's doing pretty good as of late. So I think he's somebody you have to consider. Plus, Seattle's probably going to be one of the lower scoring teams on the slate. Then we have Blake Snell for the San Diego Padres against the LA Dodgers. Now, obviously, the Dodgers have some really good players. This guy does get some good strikeouts, though, and he's actually been pretty good against the Dodgers this season. He had one game where he had 12 strikeouts and 28.5. Now, I will point out that happened during the middle of the season when the Dodgers were kind of going in a slumpy time of the year. So we do have to be aware of that. He could potentially get blown up in this game because the Dodgers have that capability. But he's still somebody that's worth taking a look at. And then, of course, we have Ohtani, who's been just a great pitcher all season long. Don't just ignore his fantasy points per game here because DraftKings doesn't know how to differentiate hits versus pitches. So I looked at his stats. He's had 2 games against Houston this season, pitching wise, and he scored 22 and 40 fantasy points in those 2 games. And out of all the games he's pitched this season, he's only had 3 under 17 fantasy points. Now, obviously, we want him to get more, 25 points or so in this particular matchup. But, for his situation, if he can get to 20 against Houston, then we're going to be pretty happy because all the pitchers on this slate are kind of in odd spots, if that makes sense. I think Max Fried's probably in the best spot for the top 3 guys. And then the next guy I like is Julio Urias for the Dodgers. Now, he has a nice little advantage because a lot of times if the Dodgers win, so he gets to, gets that bonus 4 points for the wins. But also, he's just been pitching pretty well of late. He's not had really too many bad games. He's had one there against Chicago last month. And then really, it has been up until the middle of July since he's really had a bad game before that. So, he's been solid all season, especially as of late. He's been getting strikeouts pretty good. He's not as big of a strikeout guy as some of the other guys on the slate, but he's still somebody you have to consider. And then the final guy that I really think is a guy to take a look at is Jose Urquidy. Now, he isn't very good against right-handed hitters, but the Angels are just pretty terrible overall. So if he can get around Trout, then he's going to be able to have a good game. He actually has done really good against the Angels, this season. He's had 3 games, and he's had 18 Ks in those 3 games and 25.4 fantasy points a game. So, obviously this is going to be a toughish matchup for him, but the Angels are not very good, and again, Trout and Ohtani are really the only people that can even hit you, and so if you can get around those guys, you're pretty good. So that's pretty much the best pitchers here. Obviously, there's some. We have 2 other pitchers that are pitching that are pretty decent, Kevin Gausman and Tristan McKenzie, but neither one of them have been pitching particularly great as of late, and so I didn't really like them as much as the rest of the guys. So let's go ahead and get into catchers. So we really are a little bit limited on catcher, but we do have some good options. So my first option here is Elias Diaz, who actually just had 2 home runs today in their game, and that's not showing up here. Obviously, he hadn't been hitting the ball well, but just like everybody on Colorado, they hit the ball a lot better at home than they do on the road. I will notice that, pricing came up on DraftKings. Like, every player seems like they've been boosted up in price. I don't know. But he hadn't been this expensive in a while, I don't think, if ever. Yeah, I guess he did early in the season, or in the middle some, but he's really only somebody you can use when he's at home. Another guy that I like is Alejandro Kirk. Now, Jansen is in play if he plays for Toronto instead of Kirk, so just keep that in mind. I'll show you Jansen here as well, but he's been hitting. He's had a really good last 10 games, averaging 7.4 a game, playing pretty good, and I really like his upside in this matchup. I'll show you Jansen here. If he plays, he'll be somebody you gotta use, because he's been 8.5, and he's also pretty cheap with 2 home runs in this nice big old plus matchup for Toronto. He might be my favorite catcher if he gets to play instead of Kirk. But if Kirk plays, then my favorite catcher is either going to be d'Arnaud or Contreras for Atlanta. Righties have been killing Kirby, even though that he's a pretty good pitcher. The right-handed hitters are just brutalizing him, and Contreras fits that bill, and so does d'Arnaud. And d'Arnaud actually had a home run today for Atlanta as well. So we got some good catchers available. Obviously, the prices are not ideal. You typically want to try to get a little bit cheaper on that. Another guy that you could consider if he does get in the game is Austin Barnes if he starts for the Dodgers. I don't expect him to, though, but that's somebody you could consider. But overall, I think it's pretty solid. We got a few good catchers that we can choose from, and I will say that there's going to be some value that we can have, at least in the outfield. Maybe not as much in the middle infield and stuff, but in the outfield, there's definitely some. At first base. So I basically have 3 top-tier guys, the first being Christian Walker for Arizona. I mean, this dude has just been absolutely mashing the ball. Keep in mind, these stats don't even include the game that they just had yesterday where they scored 10 or so runs. So, but obviously this is just a very stackable game, and he's at a price point, he's pretty stackable. But if you want to move off of him and you want to go alternate, you could choose to go to Josh Naylor, who has been hitting the ball pretty well, but not as good as he had earlier in the season. But he's still a home run threat in this game against Minnesota, and so I think he's a pretty solid option. And then if you have a bunch of money left over, you can go pop up here to Vladdy Guerrero Jr., who has just been, he had really been hitting home runs as of late. He's kind of due for one, and so I kind of have an expectation that in this very plus matchup where he's going to kill a right-handed pitcher that can't pitch well to right-handed hitters. So that's somebody I think is really good here. And then if you need a Hail Mary option, this guy's actually been surprisingly good as of late. He's had 2 home runs the last 10 games, 5 in his season in 38 games, and 6.4 the last 10 is Elaharis Montero. Sorry for butchering her name. He doesn't play that often, but if he plays, and he's going to be somebody that you could potentially use in this game. Just look at the score possibility of this game. Pretty much everybody's in play if they have any capacity to hit the ball well. I should mention that just like everybody in Colorado, he's better at home than he is on the road. as everybody is. Look at the difference in his batting average, and look at against Arizona, he's been really solid as well. So I definitely like him as an option. He's kind of a Hail Mary option, but he's also cheap. And so if you need to get off of Christian Walker because he's too expensive for your lineup, then you could move down to him. At second base, we have let's see here. We have Josh Rojas. Where is he? For Arizona. I mean, yeah, just, stacking everybody over here. Now, he hasn't been quite as good as of late, but he's had some really good games, and so he's somebody that we definitely like in this position. I need to fix this so I can see the guys better. All right. And then I have a couple more top-tier guys. Probably one of my favorite options at this base, actually, is Colton Wong if he plays, because he's been hitting the ball really well, but he did take a game off on Friday or yesterday, so he's somebody that we could potentially see in this game. Now, if he doesn't play, then obviously we could maneuver over to Luis Urias or someone like that on his team. But obviously, there's other guys at this position that are going to be more useful. Brendan Donovan is one of them for St. Louis. He's in a nice low plus matchup for St. Louis, and he's been hitting the ball pretty well. He had a really good game the other day, and I expect that he could continue to play well. Another guy I like, he's super expensive, is Tommy Edman for the St. Louis Cardinals as well. He's just been killing the ball as of late. I mean, that streak has been going for a while, actually, as you can see. He's had a couple off games against Washington, but he's getting going again. And I definitely like him against Brubaker, and it's really plus matchup for him. And then I have a secondary option, Von Grisham, who's been hitting the ball extremely well for the Braves. 9.5, 314 in the last 10. Somebody I really like, and he hadn't actually got a hit, I don't think, against Seattle, but so far in the game today. But I think he is a good play for tomorrow, or for today's game rather. And then I also have a Hail Mary, Alan Trejo for the Colorado Rockies. Just look at the difference. 344 at home, 143 on the road. I mean, that's just crazy. Crazy how much of a difference these guys, how they play, Anyway, let's go ahead and get to third base. I obviously have Josh Rojas here again. And then, of course, I got some more expensive guys here. Matt Chapman. Where is he? Oops. He's been hitting the ball pretty well lately. And this is the type of game where I feel like because of him being a right-handed hitter, he has all sorts of upside. So I really like him as an option. And then Austin Riley, who has just been mashing the ball as of late, 316 last 10 with 10 fantasy points a game. Obviously, he's super expensive, so you have to work him in there. But he's somebody you could take a look at. And then Justin Turner for the Dodgers against Snell. Right-handed hitters are going to have fun with Snell, and I really like him in this matchup. He is just absolutely murdering the ball, 485 the last 10 games. It's just too good to pass up, And then I have two kind of Hail Mary options. One of them is third base, is Josh Jung, or however you say his name. He's only played in one game, and he had a home run. I actually called him. I put him in my lineup yesterday as a Hail Mary type option to save money, and he paid off for me. Now, I'm not saying he's going to do that again because he's got a much tougher matchup, but I still think that he's somebody you could consider to take a chance on. And then the other guy is Monterio for Colorado, who I already mentioned, and so we definitely have some good options at that position. However, the cheaper guy is a little bit more risky today, for that position, unfortunately. But overall, it's still a good position, and we got plenty of value elsewhere. For shortstop, so I have quite a few guys, but they're all super expensive. Basically, Trey Turner, Willie Adams, Bo Bichette, Dansby Swanson, Tommy Edman, and Carlos Correa. They're all just in super good matchups. I mean, it's really hard to differentiate from one to another just based on the matchups that they're facing. The really only big advantage is for Colorado-Arizona game, and there's really nobody at this position that I really thought has been playing well for those two teams, ironically. because you got Alan Trejo you could put here, which has been good, obviously, who I already mentioned, and also Geraldo Perdomo, but he's kind of a Hail Mary situation just because, and he's not that good, so I don't necessarily recommend him, but he's just, super cheap here, and so you could potentially put him in there if you really desperately needed to. But overall, I think you need to pay up at this position, and you just have to kind of decide who it is that you like the most. All these guys have upside in their lineup, and it's really hard to find much differentiation. And I mean, even looking at the players here, they're all in plus matchups. I mean, I just don't know what else to say. You could even maneuver to Jeremy Pena, but I mean, he's going against Ohtani, which is not an ideal matchup. And then pretty much everybody else is usually pretty decent is against teams that we don't like to put people against, or pitchers rather, or pitchers we might be using. So that's probably the one position you got to pay up the most at, just because of the insanity there. But what I will say is that outfielders, we have lots of good value, so you got a lot of things to play around with and pick. So my first secondary option is Corbin Carroll for Arizona. He's absolutely been playing well. I think he had a home run today as well. So he's got, he's had a couple of bad games in the middle, but against Colorado, he's going to have a good opportunity here to, mash, and he's a good player. If you look at his stats from the minors and stuff, he was hitting the ball well, and now he probably won't play every game, but if he does play, then he's somebody you want to take a look at. So here's his stats: 24 home runs, 31 steals in the minors this season, with a 307, 425, 610. I really like him if he plays. Obviously, and for Arizona, there's another guy there too, which is Stone Garrett, that you could potentially use. I'm guessing that they're gonna trade off who plays each game, and he was also just super good against in the minors as well. So I really like him as an option. He's played 10 games so far, and he's absolutely just been really good. So I really like him as an option. Again, it's just if he plays or not. Alec Thomas is another guy that if he plays is in a good spot. He has home run potential in this matchup, and he's been hitting the ball pretty well despite the fact he doesn't play every day. I'll move back off that. And then another secondary option is Jonathan Daza for the Colorado Rockies. Now, he's not a huge home run hitter, but in this, I mean, just like most guys, he has hit the ball a heck of a lot better in Colorado than on the road. And so I think he's somebody that's kind of a fly. He's almost a Hail Mary option, to be honest, but he's still okay. Another guy I like here is Ozuna for the Braves. He's a very streaky player, but he's just suddenly starting to hit the ball well after just not hitting the ball well at all for a little while. He's hitting 333 for the last 10 games, 7.7, so if he plays, which he doesn't play every day, but if he does play, he's somebody you can consider. And then, another guy for the Braves, too, is Michael Harris. Yeah, now, left-handed hitters against Seattle do not look good at all. But every time I've said that about Harris, he's had a good game. And, I mean, he really hadn't even had a bad game since he played against Houston on the 21st of last month. So, and before that, it was another week. So it's just, he's just he also hit a home run today, I believe, or yesterday, rather. So, he's somebody to consider. Then we have TJ Friedl. He's probably one of my these are starting my top tier options. Well, actually, let me get to my last two secondary options first. Taylor Ward for LA against Houston. He's probably he hit a home run yesterday, and he's been starting to hit the ball again. I don't know that he's going to have a big game, but definitely when they get into the secondary part of the Houston's bullpen, he'll have some more opportunities. And then another secondary option is Oscar Gonzalez for Cleveland. He looks like he's in a nice little plus matchup. Obviously, he's a pretty decent hitter, but he doesn't really hit home runs, but he's still pretty decent. And then I've got several top-tier options for you, and I'm going to start at the top here, TJ Friedl for Cincinnati. He's in a really good spot. He's been blasting the ball. He's got 5 home runs the last 10 games. He hit one yesterday, yesterday again against Milwaukee. I look for him in this very plus matchup to give himself another opportunity. This guy, Jake McCarthy, I think he's a must-play again. He just murdered the ball against Colorado yesterday, and he's going to have another opportunity today. And so, yeah, get that guy in your lineup if you can. Jake Fraley is another guy that's been really hitting the ball well, and he's just a home run threat every comes off. He had 21 fantasy points, and just really good. I almost had him in my lineup yesterday. I just took him out because I ended up putting Cordell and Carroll in, and both guys hit home runs. It really didn't make any much difference. The next guy I really like here is Barshow. He was my home run pick yesterday, and basically he's going to be in play again because he is just absolutely mashing the ball as of late. He's got 6 home runs in the last 10 games. I don't know that there's anybody hotter when it comes from the home run perspective right now. He doesn't hit the ball quite as well as his, but he does, when he hits it, it just flies. Another guy I really like is Acuna. He's got a little plus matchup against Kirby, and he's been hitting the ball okay, but he's been going up and down a little bit because he's got these injury bugs and stuff. But overall, he has lots of power and lots of ability to do crazy things. And the Braves are just playing so well; it's hard to argue against anybody on the team. Another guy you can look at if you're doing stacks is George Springer. Now he hasn't been quite as good as of late, but he's still in a good opportunity. And then the last 2 guys are Tuskar, but he may not play. He's been hurt, and so you have to be, or not. He hasn't been hurt. I'm sorry. He's doing the paternity leave, I believe. And so, but he's been batting really well, and he's hitting, especially against Texas, he's been really good. If he's back, then he will be somebody you potentially take a look at. And then finally, Mike Trout. He's in a nice plus matchup against Ucorday. Now, look, we like Ucorday as a potential pitcher, but Trout has he's 5 games straight with a home run? Jesus Christ. Dude's crazy. Just mashing home runs game to game. So, let's not temper the expectations of him, and maybe Ucorday can pitch well for you, and then just give up a home run to Trout, or let Trout hit one after he goes out of the game late in the game. So overall, it's a pretty good slate. I think it's a good slate. I think that there'll be a high scoring one. There's lots of teams that are going to be high scoring here. Lots of value, lots of good players to choose from. DraftKings pricing has definitely risen up on the batter side of things. I feel like the pitchers are still pretty good. Maybe the top end one's a little bit high, but overall, I think it's a pretty good slate and pretty good. You got a lot of value, especially in the outfield. It's going to help you fill in the rest of your lineup. So, with that said, thanks for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, or if there's anybody you feel like I left out, feel free to leave those down below. And have a nice day, guys.